Welcome back to another guest speaker session from Innovativeastrosolutions. Today, I have Dr. Ramesh Thangavel to teach us on the practical astronomy for astrologers. To give a little bit background about Dr. Ramesh, he holds PhD in agricultural economics, and he is a data science evangelist of Indian Astrological System. I got introduced to Ramesh through his Quora writing, and eventually I landed to his website to read some of the very interesting articles. And his articles connect astrology, astronomy, and some of the statistical principles in Indian Astrological System. And he is also well trained in different Indian Astrological System, and he also holds a diploma in Prasanam, which is otherwise called as Horary System, and also a diploma in Panchapatchi systems. So thank you, sir, for joining today. I'm really happy and honored to have you here. So let me stop here, and you can take it from here.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for providing this opportunity, Mr. Muthu. It's an honor. And I have been writing about astrology for quite some time now, but so this is my first live session. I'm doing it like through a video session for any group. I have done it like, one-on-one for a few people, but this is the first time I'm coming across. So thank you again for providing this opportunity. Today we will get to know a little more about the astronomical side of Indian astrology. How many of you, Muthu gave me an idea that, most of the audience group is beginner level. Are there any practicing astrologers in this group?
Yeah, you can respond through chat window also.
Yeah.
If anybody want to give a response, you can respond through chat window. Yeah, probably you can type, if you are a beginner, you can type B, and if you are a professional, you can type P. Yeah, thank you, Chandra.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see the response. Yeah, most of them are beginners.
Most of them are Bs. Okay. I just want to pace set this presentation. I know most of the group is at the beginner level, but I want to set the bar a little high. I don't want to make it too very preliminary astronomy. I just want to keep it a little high so that you will be able to pick it up. And I'm certainly sure that I have a lot of content here, and then it may not be sufficient to cover everything, to understand and grasp everything in this presentation. I'm sure you will come back again to this recording, and then you will listen to it and understand the principles. So let us, before I begin my presentation, let us have a small prayer. So whomever you want to pray, let us take a minute. I normally pray to my parents, my teachers, and then to God. So I request you to have at least spend 10-15 seconds for a small prayer of whomever you want to pray. Okay, so let's get started. Astrology, right? So how many of you have any background in astrology? I'm sure most of you got interested in astrology through only in the only through learning from others and then looking at people making predictions about others, right? So if you look at Indian astrology, so which is probably practiced by few less than 5% of the people in the world. So the Western astrology is very predominant. You will come across, if you are working with in different countries, you will come across Western astrology being the predominant system practiced. But very few people, mainly in India and few other places only you come across astrologers practicing Vedic astrology. So when we say Vedic astrology, normally we refer to Parashara system, right? So if you take India itself, so India is the birthplace, I would say, for the entire astrology system of knowledge. So if you look at India, so if you travel across different parts of India, you will come across at least as a total about 800 different astrological systems being practiced in India. These systems predominantly have many things in common, and some of them are unique by their own. For example, two schools of astrology. One is the traditional Parasara system. The other is Nadi-based systems, right? If you take Nadi-based systems, they don't even consider Lagna. But if you take Parashara, so all the system, every rule, anything you touch upon in Parashara system, you will have the ascendant or the Lagna point coming into play. We talk about Bhava dimension, right? So Parashara system is three-dimensional. If you take Nadi, we talk only about Rashis and planets, which is more like two-dimensional, right? So people often wonder, why do we have different systems? And then what is the differentiating factors between these systems? What we have to understand in Indian astrology is it's not, it's a very, very sound mathematical system established on the principles of astronomy, as well as what we call as modern statistics, I would say. If you look at astronomy, so astrology and astronomy are intertwined. And also you can say astrology, astronomy, and the time. So these three are always intertwined. So one is the replica of the other. For example, if you take our Rashi chart, which is the D1 chart, so Rashi chart is very, very unique, right? No two people born on the earth can have the same Rashi chart. So when I say Rashi chart, doesn't mean just placement of planets and Lagna, but if you look at from the degree wise, so every chart is unique. So when we have so much of unique individuals born on this world, what our sages have done is how can we put together a system that can pretty much takes care of all the individualities, group them into some form or some clusters, and then give interpretation for their life events, their personality types, and things like that. So I look at astrology, I got into astrology only in the recent times, only after 2016. I've been practicing predictive modeling as a person in my field over like 15 years now. So I have built complex predictive modeling algorithms. So all these algorithms, when you try to connect with astrology, it fits with the concept and the frame of work of predictive modeling fits so well with astrology than any other fields, I would say, right? That's how I got drawn into this field. And then when I started looking at astrology through the lens of statistics, right? That's where I got so much intrigued about the constructs, how our sages have built the individual pieces so elegantly, and how they have combined all of them to come up with a system, a three-dimensional predictive modeling system, which is so elegant, which is just optimal, and which withstands the test of time. So whatever Parashara has put together, forget about any other astrologer, any other system. If you just take Parashara and follow whatever he is elaborating as the benefits or the results of a particular combination or a particular dasha bhakti, all of that, that can fit well for several thousand years from now, because they have put together a system that can capture all the variations in time, and then anybody born in the world, or anybody who is going to be born, so all of them can fit well in the three-dimensional system of prediction. So this is about the statistical side of things. Coming to the astronomy part of it, right? So we talked about astrology, astronomy, and time all being interlinked so strongly, right? If you look at any astrologer, modern day astrologer, we all start, when we start learning astrology, we just start with the beginning. First thing we start with is Kalapurusha, 12 rasis, and 9 planets plus Lagna. So that's how we start, right? Not many people really get into the validation mode of whether whatever the principles that are taught by Parashara or whatever we are learning in Indian astrological systems, are they really true? Is it, is it something, history, or something someone have found out and nobody validated it? Or is it really holding good even today? Especially in the wake of modern science, where people question a lot of things about astronomy, astronomical principles behind Indian astrological systems, or general, where people talk about, simply, calling off astrology as rubbish. So someone who is practicing astrology seriously, it puts them, really in trouble when people ask questions. So we come up with, normally we come up with answers which do not agree with modern day science, or we don't know how to elaborate that, right? But when you look at the astronomy behind the astrology of Indian systems, it's really mind-boggling. You go back in time, even assuming that Parashara system is only about 2000 years old. So some of the principles he has put together, some of the observations he has made about the movement of planets and the astronomical principles are mind-boggling. So we didn't have any binoculars, or we didn't have any satellites at the time. But our sages are so thorough, and then they are so, as if someone traveled to the universe, outside the universe, watched everything, and then put that together. We call Jnana Siddhi. So they have made that kind of a precision in terms of astronomical things. So today I want to walk you through about some of the astronomical principles. I'm going to do a demo session of using a modern day astronomy software today. So this session, the way it is going to be is I'm going to talk about some principles, and then either I will show how it is reflecting in the modern day software. We can go take it together like that, or either I can go through all the principles and then we can go on to a demo mode. How do you prefer, Muthu?
Yeah, you can talk about principles, then probably more time on demo will be helpful.
Okay, thank you. So we will do that way.
Sure.
Okay, so let us get started with the presentation today. Okay, so these are the things I'm planning to cover today, time permitting. We'll talk about the astronomy knowledge. So we'll talk about what is the solar system and geocentric view. We're going to talk about equatorial grid and ecliptic grid, sun and moon paths, the Rahu Ketu. We are going to talk about the 29 stars that we use in Indian astrology. And then I also want to touch upon some of the astronomical principles behind retrograde planets, as well as one of the Shadbala concepts, which is Naisargika Bala. So how they are all related to astronomy, that's what we are going to see today. So some of you may be from Tamil Nadu. So do you remember this famous movie clip from Unnai Ninithu, this movie called?
Yeah.
This is about Charlie playing a role of an astrologer, where
Yeah.
Somebody will bring in and then show him horoscope of a dead person, and then he will talk very high about that person, right? And then he will talk about all 9 planets are ucha for the person and things like that. So you don't want to be an astrologer of this sort, right? So this is such a divine subject. There are a lot of people, out there without the proper backing up or proper grounding in astronomical knowledge, and then people blabber a lot of things, and in that process, they bring a lot of discredit to the entire domain of knowledge in astrology. You don't want to be one of them. So today we will talk about some of the principles, so that by end of this session, you will have a better understanding or better appreciation for the knowledge systems, our traditional knowledge system. And then I'm sure you're going to appreciate all our sages at the end of this program. Okay, so let's get started. So on the left-hand side, so this is about the universe. We call the Milky Way universe. So if you look at there, in the sun, right? So our universe is, we call it an expanding, ever-expanding universe, where and then it comes in rotation, right? So we all know about that part, right? So I'm not going into the basic universe part of things today. So what we need to understand here is, if you look at the sun, where sun is placed, it's a very small particle in the Milky Way. So we are our galaxy, in the Milky Way, we are located in a place called Orion Spur. So the Orion Spur is it's a small like one of the radials in the Milky Way. So if you look at here, what you need to look at here is sun. The entire galaxy, if you look at the length and breadth, is close to 75,000 light years. So in the 75,000 light years, we are talking about a system which is centered around sun and about 1,000 or probably 1,900 light years. So those are the system we are talking about here. So those are the system through which our 29 stars are located. So we are talking about a very minuscule of the entire universe here, right? That's what we're going to see. That's the whole area we are operating in astrology. And then if you look at the right-hand side picture, our sun, if you look at, there are so many millions and billions of stars out there. Our sun is not at all visible. It's a very small, tiny particle. And within our system, solar system, so we have planets from Mercury to Pluto, known planets, right? So that is the area we are operating in Indian astrology. So now let us look at some of the astronomical factors related to the planets. So in Indian system, we mainly talk about planets till Saturn, Mercury, Venus, Earth. Then we talk about Moon, our satellite, and then we talk about Mars, we talk about Jupiter, we talk about Saturn. And then additionally, we talk about 2 mathematical points, which are Rahu and Ketu, so which are like ascending and descending nodes. That's what we talk about. If you take sun, normally the distance between sun and Earth, it's measured in astronomical unit. 1 astronomical unit is the average, so which is about 149600. So this number, so that's what we are talking about. It takes about light to travel from sun to Earth. It takes about 8 minutes. But if you take the light from the reflected light from Saturn to reach us, it takes about 70 minutes. So when we are seeing Saturn in the sky, actually that Saturn is not there. So that's the light we saw. That what we see on the sky is basically the light that has come from Saturn, and Saturn's position is actually not there. It would have moved by some degrees, on the sky. So this we have to remember. Let's move on to the next one. Okay. So there are quite a bit of pictures here. So let me explain this to you. Okay. So we all know about the inclined, tilted axis of Earth, right? So the axis is tilted by 23.44 degree. Earth is tilted, and in the tilted one, the Earth travels around the Sun. So I'm showing the orbit direction here on the left-hand side. So this we call as ecliptic, and the tilted axis, what you call the way we see the Earth, that is called the celestial equator. So in celestial equator, we will talk about in the next slide. So where we talk about Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, so that we will talk about. Because the Earth is tilted on the axis, so when it moves around the Sun on its path, it over a period of time, it goes through something called a precession. So what is a precession? We will talk about that. You can see the slide on, you can see the pictures on the right-hand side. So what is a precession? So normally we say that 1 year is made up of 365.24 days, right? That's what we call as solar days. But if you look at minutely, when Earth completes one rotation on its own, full rotation, it completes that, at the time of 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds. It doesn't take 24 hours. So basically, there is a difference of 3 minutes and 56 seconds. So Earth is completing one rotation from a sidereal, what we call a sidereal day. A sidereal day is a reference to the background star. So look at the place here. So we are starting at same time when star and sun are together. So when the Earth completes one full rotation, which is a sidereal day, the star again comes back on the same place. So we are able to see the star same place. But after that, if we take say a solar day, by the time sun moves here, the star already moved little further, right? So this is the difference between sidereal solar day and sidereal day. Because you have about 4 seconds on every day, so when you add up to 365 days, it pretty much adds up to one whole day in terms of sidereal calculations. So we call 365 day, but actually it is 366 sidereal days. So because of, there are reasons why this changes, because Earth's own rotation, and when it is moving around the sun, it also goes through, because of the tilted axis, it goes through this type of rotation over a period of 25,772 years. So this we call as a precession. So this is the core concept behind Ayanamsa. So Ayanamsa are known to Indians. So this is a hardcore Indian construct in astronomy. So only in recent times, Western astronomers and Western astrologers talk about this concept. But this concept is pretty much known to us several thousand years back, right? So let me put this picture now. So this is what is going through when we see a precession cycle. So it's like a normal example they give is you consider a tap rotating, and then the top axis goes through a circle. So today, what we see as a pole star is Polaris. So Polaris, last 2,000 years, we talk about Polaris as the pole star. But if you take the previous period, which is like Ramayana period. So at that time, which we call about 12,000 years back. So that is the pole star is not Polaris, but rather it is Vega. So you will see a lot of references in, there are quite a bit of videos on YouTube. You can go and check where they talk about how do you time the events in Mahabharata and Ramayana. So if you look at that text, it will make references to Vega as the pole star. This is something you need to understand. Okay. Okay, the pole star is not fixed because of the precision. It changes over a period of time. So that's what as students of astrology we need to remember. Okay, how much does it move? It moves about 50.3 arc second per year. So this is something that you will see when you're talking about Ayanamsa and different sets of Ayanamsa. We will talk about the movement, right? So every year how much the rotation, the axis, the difference in degrees that you will notice. Okay. Any questions on this so far?
I think you can proceed.
Any questions? Sure.
This 3 minutes 56 seconds, can we relate it somewhat to the Pada 3 degrees 20 minutes?
I'm not able to hear. I'm not able to hear well.
Yeah, this 3 minutes 56 seconds difference per day.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not able
Still?
to hear you well.
Is it better now?
Yeah, actually, I'm able
But
to
I'm not
hear.
able to. You're able to hear?
Yeah.
I think I have some problem. I'm not able to hear well. Go ahead, please.
This 3 minute 56 seconds difference.
Yeah.
Is there any correlation to the Pada 3 minutes 20 degrees?
I don't
If you
think
multiply
so, sir.
it so many times, okay. Yeah.
No, I don't think so. So this is like so the Pata and all the calculations are the mathematical side of things.
Yeah.
I don't think that they have anything to do with astronomical side of things.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let us move on to the next one. We have quite a bit of things to cover. Okay. So then let us talk about the principles of the what happens because of the tilted axis, right? So the tilted axis is the core of all the 4 seasons. Because of the tilted axis, we get to see that the sun goes to the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. That's how we get to see the different seasons, in the different parts of the world. There are times when, because of the tilted angle, so the day and night differences keep changing. When sun travels to the northern hemisphere, so the northern hemisphere experience more daylight, and then vice versa when it goes to the southern side. So if you look at the angle, so it is about 23.44. So we call 23.5. This angle is kind of, it's not fixed. So it varies over a period of time. So if you go and do a Wikipedia search, you will see that this angle keeps changing. So the Tropic of Cancer is a point where these two angles, these two, if you look at mathematically, so these two angles are same. So that's where we draw a line. So when we look at sun going till the Tropic of Cancer and then touching back the equator again, and then it goes south. So that's what we call when it travels towards north, we call Uttarayana, and when it travels towards south, we call it Dakshayana, right? So those are the terms we use in astrology. The reasoning is for that is the tilt in axis, nothing to do with Uchar, Nichar, anything like that. Normally, one of the concept many astrologers, like explanation they provide is when sun reaches, basically the Chitrai Masam. So that's when sun enters Aries. When sun enters Aries, that's what we call, that's when our new year starts for many cultures in India. So that's a starting point of one full cycle. So normally, some astrologers have told that, since the Ucha, the reason for sun being Ucha is it's very hot and things like that. So that's, I would say that's an absurd explanation for being Ucha. So basically, it has to do with the northern hemisphere, we have more land area, right? If you look at the Earth distribution of land. And because of that, we tend to see more heat. And then that's the reason for, that part of the year being very hot. And then basically after a certain period, when the sun travels to the north, we feel more heat, that the heat comes down. So there is no relationship between Ucha, Nicha and hotness of the sun. So if somebody says that, just to disregard that. Okay. So now let us get into the interesting part of this presentation. So there are references when we talk about astrology. There are references made to the equatorial grid and ecliptic grid. So the ecliptic grid is the crux of astrology. So the ecliptic grid is, we'll see in the next slide. But if you look at the equatorial grid, so if you place the Earth, and then if you draw imaginary lines on top of the Earth, just the way, keeping that, we are rotating like a straight without considering a tilt. So the grid will look something like this, right? So on this grid, if you see here, you will see that there are lines drawn. So these are the lines for different planets. All the planets that travel across across the sun, so they all will form this kind of a line. So we'll talk about that next. Because of the tilted axis, it feels that they are going up and down, but actually all the lines, without if you remove the tilt effect of Earth, that will look all straight. Okay, so now let us look at what is an ecliptic. So ecliptic is an imaginary line that is drawn. If you look from Earth to the sun, if you draw imaginary line on the background, so whatever the line that is drawn, basically that is the path where Earth is traveling around the sun, right? So that path is called ecliptic. So if you understand the basic astronomy and the solar system, most of our planets except Pluto, all the planets are traveling around the sun on a small plate, like a small, I would say like with a minimal variation. All their paths are around the same path. So that's what we saw earlier. And if you look at this diagram, you can see that all the planets' path are pretty much similar with some variability. If you look at it from outside, it will look like all are traveling on the same path, some variation. Now let us understand what this has to do with astrology, right? So if you look at we have like 12 Rashis, right? So if you look at all the Rashis, you will see that all the Rashis are actually placed on this ecliptic path. You see Bharani, Ashwini, Bharani, the Mesha touches upon that path, and then Rishabha, you go through all of them, all the Rashis at least touch upon this ecliptic path. So this is what we call all the planets' path around the sun. So this is the crux. This is the crux on which we calculate all our degrees in the Rashi chart. Okay. Now the interesting part comes, right? So we also talk about 27 nakshatras. So if you see some of the nakshatras, for example, let us take Swati, right? Swati is not placed on the Rashi, right? So we talk about Tula Rashi. So Tula Rashi is here, but Swati is placed somewhere outside of Tula Rashi. Do you see? We talk about Kanya Rasi, but if you see Hasta Nakshatra is not actually on the Kanya Rashi, but rather it is below Kanya Rashi, right? Similarly, if you take most of the, at least 30-40% of the nakshatras are not on the same Rashi, or not on the same Rashi diagram. So they are well above. For example, you call Dhanishta, you take Uttarattadi, Purattadi, all those nakshatras, Shravana, all of them are well above or below the ecliptic path. But we talk about them in, for example, Kanya Rashi, we talk about Astam, but Astam is not in Kanya Rashi. It's away from Kanya Rashi, right? So it's intriguing, right? Why they are calling Astam as part of Kanya Rashi, right? In this diagram, you have to also see, we talk about Abhijit, so which is Vega, normally popularly known as Vega Nakshatra, Vega. And this is, I told you earlier, right? So this is part of the precision circle, which is where Abhijit was a pole star, like 12,000 years back. So you will see a reference to Abhijit, on the top side. Okay. Now let's move on and try to understand why the stars are chosen here, why they are not part of the sun's path. Okay. So now what I have done here is putting together in a grid form and then aligning all of the Rashis and on the ecliptic grid, right? So if you see here, the precision circle is shown on the top. Okay. So let us talk about this ecliptic path. So which is what we call, there is if you draw a central line based on Earth, and then if you take 6 degree up, 6 degree down, 6.5 degree up and down, these 14 degrees, right, up and down together, this range is called the ecliptic path. So if you see all the planets, when they are coming around the sun, their path will not cross this 14 degree. Either they will go up and down, but they will always stay within that 14 degree belt. So this belt is very, very important in astrology. Okay. Sometimes we talk about planet being on the north, planet being on the south. All the references are made, south and north references are made to the 0 degree of ecliptic, which is based on Earth. So this you have to remember. Okay, so we'll talk about Graha Yuddha and all. So I'll touch upon that part. So that time it will be important. Just remember that this 14 degree band is what we always talk about in astrology. Okay, so now this may look like a complex diagram. So what I have done here is basically I have overlaid an ecliptic grid and equatorial grid. So if you look at that, you will see a point of intersection between these two being the 0 degrees being same. So that's what I have shown here. So the light purple ones are the ecliptic grid. The pink ones are the equatorial grid. So both of them on an equinox day. So equinox day is when the daylight and daytime and nighttime are equal. So when sun exactly hits the equatorial line, so that's called equinox day. So we have that in 2 times in a year. So at that time, if you look at that, these 2 degrees, these 2 grids will align exactly on the 0 degree on 2 points. So one is the 0 and the other is on the 180 degree point, right? So this concept is crux of all our Ayanamsa systems. So for example, if you take C.G. Rajan Ayanamsa, so that is about 301, May 9th day morning when the sun rises, at the time both the grids will be aligned to each other. So we call this as year of epoch, so which is the index period base year on which we calculate Ayanamsa. So the other component of Ayanamsa is they will talk about a year of epoch, and then they will also talk about how much it moves on the arc second, year-on-year movement. We talked about 50 degree point something, right? So that's what we have year of epoch. The third component of is something called a star, on which star they calculate the Ayanamsa. We'll talk about that a little later. But just understand that when you overlay the ecliptic and equatorial grid on a equinox day, so both grids 0 degree will be aligned together. Okay, so this is very important. So this is an important concept. So we talked about the equatorial grid. Now let us talk about moon's path around the Earth, and then on the Rashi chart, right? So let us look at the metrics. Some of the numbers here. So moon is very closely compared to other planets. Moon is very closely located to Earth, so which is about 385,000 kilometers closer to Earth. And then just the way we have Earth is tilted on its angle, Moon is also tilted on its angle, right? So it has a tilt of about 6.68 degree. So here we have 23.44 degree. So these two planets, these two sort of bodies are we call they are tied to each other, like we called because they have a common center of rotation. So it's not that moon comes around the Earth. So they both of them rotate together, considering a point that lies inside the Earth. That's the reason it looks like moon is surrounding the Earth, coming around the Earth, but that's not the case. So we have a point in the Earth, somewhere within the radius of falling, the center falling within the Earth. So we call this as barycenter. So the concept of barycenter, it's applicable not only to Earth and Moon, it also applicable to any bodies that is surrounding each other, two body system or multi-body system that has a common core. Even our solar system, if you take sun, the entire solar system's barycenter is located inside the sun. So that's the reason you will see all the planets rotating sun at a different velocity and with some variation in the movement of the speeds and things like that. Okay, because these two planets axis, if you look at the inclination, one is the axial tilt, the other part of that is the inclination. So the moon's path is not exactly aligned with the ecliptic path. The ecliptic path is where the Earth moves around sun, right? But if you look at the moon's path, it is little bit tilted. Because of the inclination, the way sun and the sun's path and moon's path interact around, we are talking about geocentric, right? So when you see from Earth, this changes. Now let us look at what does it mean. So the yellow line talks about when we look at from Earth, what we call ecliptic path. And we also see because of the tilt, moon's path is the moon is inclined about 5 degree. Because of the tilt, you see that these two paths are not exactly aligned. Rather, they intersect only at 2 points. So if they are aligned exactly, we will see grahana every month. Because they are not aligned, so they are tilted to each other, we see grahana only in 2 times in a year in the cycle. So this path, the Rahu Ketu, we call these are the mathematical points. There are no planets out there. There are no snakes out there. So these mathematical points, because of the rotation, keep moving in a 18.6 year cycle. So they complete one full cycle. So when we talk about ascending node, the path of moon is above the sun's path. When we talk about descending node, the moon's path is below the ecliptic path. So that's the difference between ascending and descending node. So these two are 180 degree apart. If you look at astrological software, you will have something called a mean node and a true node. So a mean node and true node is, while we have drawn a line which is like a perfect circle, they don't travel like this. So if you look at moon's path, so the moon's path will be wavy around like this. So any path, it will wave around, the moon's path will keep waving, and then it doesn't form an exact round circle, but rather it forms like a wavy path, something like this. Just the way we have a precision circle, we call about nutation. So the moon's path also keep moving like that. So that is the difference you will see when you calculate true node and a mean node in your software. Normally, if you are using a system like a KP system, that in that case, you have to use the true node. You cannot use the mean node. In most of the software, they only have mean node. They don't give true node. So this is some of the astrological consideration you need to make. Okay. Now let us come to the interesting part. So which is about what is the significance of Earth, the ecliptic as well as moon's path. If you read, anyone who is criticizing about astrology as a whole, they will talk about mainly Western astrology, I would say. So they will say there are, if you look at all the constellation, there are about 88 constellation, modern day constellations we have in place. Excuse me. Out of the 88 constellation, so if you look at, we are considering only 12 constellations, even if you take Western system. They talk about some of the key constellations being left out. For example, this particular constellation, right? You see the 12 rashis we have are all aligned, but there are also rashis which are on the grid but not considered in astrology, right? And then we also have moon travels, moon's path also we talk about, right? Ascending node and descending node. Then the criticism is made saying that astrology doesn't consider all the constellations, and it doesn't take into account the full ecliptic path. So people make that kind of comment. So that mainly comes because of the lack of knowledge behind why we have chosen these rashis and then why there are certain nakshatras chosen. A Western system cannot answer that, to a satisfactory level. But if you take Indian system, so let us look at the moon's path, right? If you look at this picture, the ones which are in green, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So all the 12. So those are the 12 rashis we have. So if you take the 12 rashis, you will see that both wherever I have marked a line, so you will see that moon and earth travel on those rashis, right? But there are also other rashis that are in the path of moon. So if you take all the numbers, there are about totally 27. So if 21, and then you have another 4. So including the marked ones. So we have all the rashis, all the constellation that moon touches upon. So if you look at our star system, our sages have picked at least one star, which is perfectly aligning with that particular constellation, or something closer to, very straight to that. So that's how our 27 stars have been chosen. So if you look at all the stars, you will see moon touches all of them, all the 25 constellations. So contrary to Western system where they don't talk about moon's path, Indian system considers both moon's path as well as sun's path in selecting the different nakshatras and rashis. Okay, so this has a profound implication, when you understand the astronomical knowledge of our sages. Any questions on this? This is a very, very important slide. So you have to understand that why they have chosen a particular star, which is not in the zodiac, 12 zodiacs, but rather up or down. The reason is those zodiacs, those rashis, or those stars are at least touched upon by sun, at least touched upon by moon in some way. When you take the 18.6-year cycle, moon will go at least closer or touch those particular constellations. Is this clear?
You mean even Hasta also?
Hasta, it goes close. So what I would say is, so you're talking about the Corvus, right? So Here you see the 18-point-year cycle, right? After 9 years, if you look at the moon's path will actually lie close here. So it will pass through the 14-degree band. So it goes close to the band, not exactly on Hasta, because Hasta lies well below the 14-degree band. But it will go closer to that. It will pass through the Hasta nakshatra closely. I will explain that on the next slide. But this at a top level, I want you to understand and grasp. Any other questions? Shall we move on?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Okay. So now let us talk about different nakshatras and their taras. So this is a term I kind of used in my articles. So Ashwini, contrary to what we think, like all the stars are single stars. So that is not a correct understanding. So rather, if you look at the astrology text, they will talk about 3 taras, 2 taras, 8. For example, Kritika, we talk about 6 nakshatras. So Kartigai Pengal, right? So we call about we relate to that to six girls who raised Lord Muruga, right? So if you look at that way, a nakshatra is not necessarily one nakshatra, but rather it can be a collection of few nakshatras. So that is how our system is considering nakshatras. For example, Ashwini consists of 2 nakshatras. If you take Mula is a collection of 8 nakshatras, not just one nakshatra. So within Mula, so there is a prominent nakshatra, but the collection of nakshatras or taras are called a nakshatra in our system. Okay, similarly, if you take Bharani, consists of 3. Okay. Now let us look at the right-hand side picture, right? There is a popular notation that the brightest stars in a constellation have been considered in astrology, right? Because that is easy to see and then see whether a moon or other planets are lined along with that, right? But that is not correct. So if you look at here in the Rashi, Mesha Rashi, so the brightest in Mesha Rashi, one of the brightest is called Alpha Arietis. So this Alpha Arietis is called Hamal. So this is used in Arabic system. But if you look at the Indian system, we don't use this particular star. Rather, we use stars which are feeble in light in terms of the brightness, so which is the Ashwini. So on the right-hand side, you can see that Ashwini is a double star. So when we talk about astronomy, the stars are either single stars or they're double stars or they're triple stars. And then they talk about rotating star, they talk about pulsating star. So what happens is, this is just the way I said, so they move around, rotate around each other, just similar to the concept like barycenter. So they have like a common center of rotation, and then they move around. So unless you watch through a binocular or a very precise telescope, you will not be able to even see that these stars are like single star or double stars. But if you go and look at an astrological text, right? So they will clearly, our saints have clearly mentioned that this is a rotating star. This is like a double star, like it has like a Ashwini Kumara. They don't say Ashwini. They call Ashwini Kumara. So which means more than 1, 2 people. They talk about Ashwini means 2. So if you look at the star here, they always talk about 2-star system here, right? So these are the nuances you have to understand when there is no telescope or when there is no satellite available, and these stars are not easy to figure it out. Even if you use a very high-end telescope, you will not be able to see the star rotating with each other. You need a very, very high precision telescope to find that out. But our saints have found that and then documented it, and then that's how they describe a star, right? So you have, within a same constellation, there is a diagram we call asterism, but the asterism is just a symbol. So because if you look at the asterism, if you make an asterism is like a 2-dimensional reduction. If you turn the asterism like this, you will see that each star these are like imaginary lines, like a diagram of a goat is an imaginary line. There is no, not all the stars are aligned together. So they are very far distant wise, several light years distant. We will talk about that. So this is one, the asterism, the Rashi chart symbol, all are only a two-dimensional flat view of the nakshatra system. Okay, you have to remember that. Okay, so this slide talks about how many nakshatras are there in each star. Ashwini 2, Mula has highest number, 9 stars. Kritika, we normally say 6, but actually in Kritika, if you look at, so there is it's called Pleiades. So if you go and look at Pleiades, search for that in Google, you will find, so there are about 8 star collections. So we are able to see 6 stars because the 2 stars don't have the visual magnitude. I will talk about that. So 6 stars are very prominently visible, 2 stars are feeble, but Kritika has 8 stars collection. Okay, so like that you can see. Rohini single star, Maham single star, Swati, Chitrai are like single stars. Hastam consists of 5 stars. So like that it will go. Alpha, Beta, Zeta Pisceum, which is Revati, that is like 1 star. So Revati is little feeble. We'll talk about that. Okay. Now let us get into the stars. I strongly encourage you, if you have not watched, if you have known about stars only through astrology, charts and other things, I want you to step out of that comfort zone. I encourage each one of you. There are quite a bit of apps available. I will try to show 1 or 2 apps today. So you can use that apps, basically astronomy apps, and then you can go and look at the sky. It can give you the identifier information for the particular star. So here you see, we are seeing, and some stars, if you look at through a binocular, some stars will look blue, some stars will look yellow, some stars look red. A blue star is something that is very, very active. There is a lot of nuclear activity happening. That's why it's just like the, if you see a Tau furnace flame, right? So the more active part is blue, the burning part is yellow, burnt out part is red. Sun is, in the middle. Maka Nakshatra and a few other stars are fully very active, very, very active stars. And red stars are one which are dying out stars. Okay, so if you look at the binocular, you can see Swati Nakshatram, you see, and then you see the difference between Swati and Chitra Nakshatram. Chitra is more active, Swati is not that active. I'll show about that. Okay. So let us talk about the Jyoti part of Jyotisham. Okay. Jyotish, we call ourselves, right? So it's all about, we talk about light. So light is about how much bright you are, how much bright a planet is. We always talk about Jyoti, the concept of light in Jyotisham. So what does it mean in astrology? So why we attach so much importance to that light part of things, right? So if you look at the stars, there is something called a visual magnitude, and there is something called an apparent visual magnitude. A visual magnitude is how bright a particular object is. So here we are talking about all about stars, the 27 stars, which further gets, I have listed about, if you look at the chart below, so I have given the identifier names. So an identifier name is a common nomenclature. For example, we call Ashwini, but if you look at other cultures, they don't call it as Ashwini. They call it with some other name. Arabian names are different. Chinese names are different. So everybody have their own system of stars. Just to avoid all the confusion and to have all the measurements, the astronomical measurements precisely, so we use something called a catalog of system. So the ones I have shown here are called HAP, which is called Hippocrates catalog. So there are different catalogs available. Henderson catalog is there. And then you also have IAU catalog. So the catalogs makes it easy to identify a particular star across different systems and cultures. So what I have done is, I have gone through the Stellarium software. I have collected all the names and all possible names, and after a lot of search, I found out what are the corresponding HIP names or the identifier names, and then I collected their astronomical data. So what you see here is that specific data point for all the stars. If you have to go through manually, it is a tedious job, so I just made it simple for you here. Okay, in this chart, what you need to understand is any star which is having a negative value is a bright star. So this is called a negative logarithmic number. So the apparent visual magnitude is a negative logarithmic number. So anything on apparent magnitude which is a very high negative, that will be a bright object. So if you look at here, just keeping the stars wherever they are, and then if you look at all the stars are below 6.5. So there is a cutoff called 6.5. 6.5 is a limit where you can see a particular star. Below 6.5, you can up to, this is minus, is any number, negative is fine, but the positive side logarithmic number cannot exceed 6.5. So when we show the software, I will show you that where the setting is available. If you see all the stars meet that criteria. So the reason they have chosen a star is the star should be visible, easily identifiable. So even if you look at Kritika, 2 of the Kritika Nakshatra stars are relatively feeble. 6 are very strong. You can see them in the night. All the stars are easily visible because sun is such a high number, it doesn't fit in this frame. Sun is so much bright for us. Okay. Now, there are stars which are much, much bigger than sun, right? For example, if you take Arctus, which is the Swati Nakshatram, or if you take Tiruvadara Nakshatram, so these are like Betelgeuse. So these are very, very huge stars compared to sun. But they are far away. So if you keep all of them together, like line up them in a particular distance, right? So that is called absolute magnitude. So absolute magnitude is where you keep everybody on the same line and then compare their brightness, right? So absolute magnitude is normally calculated at, you keep all of them at 32.62 light years distance. If you move all the objects to that line, how much bright they would be. That's how we calculate absolute magnitude. If you look at that way, you will see that sun's value is from minus 27, it has gone to 4.8. You see sun has become a feeble object. So if you move our sun aligned with all other stars, sun comes the last out of the 27 stars. Okay, because it is close. It's like having a cell phone which is closer to you, which looks bright, rather than having a 100-watt bulb, which is like a 1 kilometer away from you. Actually, the 100-watt bulb is more brighter than the cell phone, but because the cell phone is closer to you, this looks more brighter for us. Are you clear on that? Okay, so now let us step back and then talk about the importance of this light. Okay, we talked about the visual magnitude, right? Apparent visual magnitude, right? So apparent visual magnitude is how much bright an object is. So in this slide, we talked about stars. Now let us talk about the planets. So if you look at planet-wise, sun is minus 27. So if you look at this, you will refer to this particular column where I have next to the 1 and refer to the average apparent visual magnitude X column. So if you look at here, all the objects, if you look at this is the Naisargika Bala order. So this is how Parashara defines which planet should be given how much importance. So if you look at sun, it is given 1, which is 7 out of 7. Moon, 6 out of 7. 5 out of 7. So this is how we assign a ranking. If you calculate percentages, you will get this particular score. But if you look at their visual magnitude in this order, you will see that it exactly aligns with the brightness factor, brightness score of a particular planet. Sure. So this is the crux. Whenever we talk about natural strength, so here Parashara refers to this particular number, particular visual magnitude number. So this is not available in textbooks. So this is you're learning for the first time. And if you look at all other, there is something called a mean score, and then there is also a maximum score. So if you look at this order, the maximum score, when Mars comes close to Earth, its value is much higher than than Saturn comes to Earth. So these are some of the comparisons I just showed you for your information. So now let us look at the last column, right? What is the distance versus how much diameter? So if you look at here, after Sun's, in terms of the ratio between the planet and the distance, Sun tops, followed by Moon and other planets. Okay. So we talked about apparent absolute magnitude. So these numbers, some of you who are not very well aligned with astronomy, these numbers may look a little boring, but this is the crux behind it. Okay. So now let us look at how far the objects are. Not all the nakshatras are aligned. What you have to consider when we talk about nakshatra system is nakshatras are the background and the planets are the moving parts on that. So you need a solid background. Background. It's like a stage. On a stage, you have like clear markers, and then the planets are the ones who are moving around. So you will know which planet is placed where. So that is how nakshatras have been chosen. So these nakshatras are very, very far away. So if you look at the time taken for light to travel, so we are talking about the magnitude of maximum 70 minutes for the light from Saturn to come to us. But when you take nakshatras, the light from them to come to us for on an average of 304 light years, not just 1 light year, 304 light years. You calculate the percentage of time we are talking about when we compare it to a planet versus star. Normally, some astrologers, make references, says that a particular moon gets the light from nakshatra, it reflects it on life. So which is not, in my opinion, that is not a correct interpretation. It is like, saying something without any strong basis for it. For example, it takes so many light years, right? Assume that a light from Magha Nakshatra will take about 1,930 years to reach us, right? So we don't live for so many years. We live probably for 70 years, 80 years. So it doesn't make sense. So what you would rather understand is these nakshatras are the boundaries which clearly draw the line based on certain distance, which we will talk about. Okay. So all the nakshatras, in this slide, what you have to understand is all nakshatras are not placed on the same distance. Some nakshatras are very close. For example, Swati nakshatra is very close. And let us look at the other slide. And so just look at the visual on the left-hand side, which is like an expanding, consider this like an expanding universe. I didn't have a better picture. So when an expanding universe, it's like a fireworker cracker bursting out. So it sends out all the minute particles. Not all the particles travel on the exact direction, right? So some will move forward, some will move backward. So all that happens. Even when you take nakshatras from a heliocentric point of view, all nakshatras move. They move away from each other. So the nakshatras which are far away from sun move at a faster distance. Nakshatras which are closer to sun, they move at a relatively lesser speed. So here we often, when you get to a higher level of astrology or in astronomy, people always talk about parallax motion as well as proper motion. A proper motion, the whole motion of nakshatra consists of both proper motion plus parallax motion. Parallax motion is, okay, let us assume that you have like an object from here, right? And then if the object is here, even a smaller movement like this, you will see the values changing a lot. But rather, if you keep the object very far, and then if you keep a pencil here, and then if you keep moving like that, So this is not very far. This even a slight movement will not change the values very much. So this is something you have to understand. All the stars move. Some stars move closer to sun. Some stars move closer to, away from sun. This movement consists of both parallax as well as proper motion. Proper motion is if you measure in terms of distance, how much they move, proper motion is higher, parallax motion is part of that. Okay. And then there is also a barycenter motion. So just remember that. Okay. Now let us take this view is from one of the astrology software, Jyotish Star Pro. If some of you have, you would have seen this chart. So this chart visual is not available in any other software. So here what they have done is they have shown the placement of planets on the equatorial grid. So it's not ecliptic grid, rather they placed all the planets and stars on the equatorial grid. So this is how it will look like. I just want to show you this one. Okay. Now, so what you see here now is this is something I have put together. It's available in my website also. You can see. So I have written a few articles, detailed articles on the placements. So and now I want to refer this particular chart with what we talked about, sun's path and moon's path. So what I have taken is I have taken the coordinates of each of the stars. I have taken their ecliptic latitude and longitude, and then I have plotted them on this graph. And then below, what I have done here is I have aligned that with the degree, the ecliptic degree. This is actually ecliptic degree, 0 to 360. And then this is your longitude, this is your latitude, right? So we talked about the ecliptic band spreading across 6 degrees on each side of it, right? And then if you look at here, right now, if you look at here, we have Uttaratadi Nakshatra and Revati Nakshatra coming in 0 alignment, right? So this is where we talk about the Ayanamsa. So this ecliptic grid has to be moved further, right? So when we say a starting point of our Rashis is Mesha Rasi, then we have to move it to Mesha Rasi, right? So that's what I have done here in this chart. So here I have kept 0 degree Ashwini. So this is not the proper way of Ayanamsa, but I just want to show you how it will look like. If you place all the nakshatras on the ecliptic grid, so this is how it will look like. And then I have also highlighted the band in which you see some nakshatras falling. You will see that only when moon travels on these nakshatras, on the moon's background, you can have an eclipse, right? Only behind these, keeping these nakshatras behind, an eclipse can happen. An eclipse cannot happen on Trivona Nakshatra, or it cannot happen on a Hasta Nakshatra, because the moon can never travel through these planets, through these nakshatras. It can travel close to it, but it can never touch upon a Mula Nakshatra, Hasta Nakshatra, Ashlesha, Adra, Mrigashirisha. Even for that matter, Ashwini, Bharani, moon will never touch these nakshatras when it travels. It goes through them, just a straight line to them, but it doesn't touches these nakshatras. So this is very, very important. So it drives the fact that when they choose nakshatra, when we say a moon-based system, it doesn't mean that moon travels there. Rather, the nakshatra distance is more important. So when they choose a nakshatra and they give importance, what our sages have considered is how do we select a star which is 13.2 degree distant from the next star. So that's what they have considered. This is clear? So this is a very, very important information you need to know. So nakshatras, moon doesn't travel on all the 27 nakshatras. It travels through only a select handful of nakshatras. And the distance between the nakshatras is important than the nakshatra themselves. So the nakshatras serve as a marker for measuring the movement of planets on the sky. Is this clear? Okay. Now, let us talk about the Ayanamsa. Let us quickly touch upon. So Ayanamsa itself, we can talk for hours together, but I want to make sure we quickly touch upon move on. Okay, so if you take Ayanamsa, you see most of the Ayanamsa systems we currently have, like True Lagri system, or you take any other system, most of them take Chitra Nakshatra as the base. So what they do is, they take Chitra Nakshatra at a particular degree, and then they have to move the needle just above 180 degree, and then wherever the needle touches on the ecliptic grid coordinate, so that's what they call as the beginning of Mesha Rasi, right? This is very, very important. If you choose, for example, let us say Chitra Nakshatra is, on a particular 180 degree. So if you take 180 degrees Chitra Nakshatra, then the 180 degree, you have to deduct 180 degree from wherever the coordinate, and then you have to put the 0 degree coordinate of ecliptic on here. So it will not fall on Ashwini, it will rather fall just well before Ashwini. So we call, if you take Pandit Sanjay Rath, he talks about saying that, it's an empty space. The beginning of Rudra is an empty space. That's what he will quote. So like that. Okay, so this is clear. Okay, now the question comes. So there are so many nakshatras. So at least we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 nakshatras. So on 10 nakshatras, an eclipse can happen. You can clearly see an eclipse on these nakshatras at some point of time, not every year. On the background, it can happen. But why did we choose Chitra Nakshatra? So Chitra Nakshatra is below the grid. It is not on the ecliptic grid. Rather, it is below, just below the grid. So if for that matter, if you take Puksha Nakshatra, Pusa Nakshatra, or if you take Revati Nakshatra, or you take, for that matter, if you take even Visaha, there is a Nakshatra. So these nakshatras are exactly sitting on the ecliptic grid, right? So this is the basis for different Ayanamsa. So Pushya Bhaksha Ayanamsa, what it says is, you take in Chitra Bhaksha Ayanamsa, you call Chitras in some degree, but in Pushya Bhaksha, we will call Pushya Nakshatra on some degree. And then move the needle further, and then you will have a different starting point. Similarly, what they say in Revati Nakshatra is, we will keep 360 degree at Revati Nakshatra, and then we will move the needle here and there. So these are the basis for different Ayanamsa. It's an interesting discussion. In the interest of time, we will do it probably later. Now let us come to the what we got. Looking at the placements. We normally say that astrology, it's an exact replica of astronomy. We normally people draw that our sages have their observation skills are great. They have chosen all of that. But what we need to understand is that over the time, the stars have moved, right? So because we saw about how the stars move and all of that. What you need for astrology is the sages have not exactly taken all the stars by the placement, because they chose a particular star on the sky, which is nearby. It's not exactly the same degree, but they have chosen a star, 27 stars on the sky. And the stars, if you look at, they are not placed on the same line. They are placed somewhere here and there on different latitude, longitude. But what they've considered is the longitude is pretty much close to the 13.2 degree distance. The longitude doesn't, the latitude doesn't matter, but on the ecliptic grid, the longitude matters. So that's what we use in degree system. Any degree that we quote in our Rashi chart or our astrology, it's all about Indian astrology. It's all about the degrees. The strong basis for that is how they have chosen 27 stars. We call in statistics, two things need not be perfect. Even if one thing is very close to the reality, even if you're able to choose a model which is very close to the resemblance of what is there, then that's a good model. In this model, if something is perfect, you will have a score of 1. So if you see here the R square value here, we have a score of 0.997. It is more than 99.7%. We have close alignment. So what we need to draw inference here is, even though you have stars moved here and there, the model, the rationale behind the choosing these stars is very, very valid, even after several thousand years. Okay, so we have a very strong Indian astrology as a very strong foundational basis on which we have built the system. Why we chose the star? Because we want to measure the placement of a planet from a star, where it traveled on the ecliptic path. So the underlying idea here is clearly measuring the placement of a planet for further mathematical calculations and modeling, but using the stars as the base. So someone after learning this, you should strongly know why do we have 12 rashis, and then why do we have 27 nakshatras. Together they form the measuring yardstick for us to see where planets have moved in a particular ecliptic path. Is this clear? Let's move on. Okay, now on the ecliptic path we talked about, right? So let me talk about something about a planetary war. So a planetary war is when two planets are in the same degree. How do you decide who is the winner, right? So we talk about planetary war, right? Graha Yuddha in astrology, right? So what does it mean is, if two people are on the same line, right? So two people are running a race and two people are on the same line or somewhere closer to each other, then how do you decide the winner? Whom should be given the credit, right? So in statistically, we have, this is the statistical concept behind. So in this case, who will be given the winner is something which is on the northern side of the ecliptic 0 degree. So if you look at here, I have shown a situation where there was a planetary war between Jupiter and Saturn 2 years back. So I have taken the timing and then I put a Rashi chart. If you look at the ecliptic grid, so Saturn's ecliptic grid value, if you look at here, it is higher than Jupiter's ecliptic grid latitude value. So this is minus 0.28. This is minus 0.22. So in this case, since Saturn is closer to the middle point of ecliptic, so we call that Saturn as the winner. So these all the calculations when we draw a conclusion that is based on the ecliptic grid. Okay, so now I want to talk about some of the common questions people generally ask. So one of the statements we often make is, we call even Surya as a graha, right? So people often ask, Surya is a nakshatra, it's not a planet. Why do astrology treat it like a planet, right? So what we call graha. So graha is something, what we have is something moves without, with some kind of randomness, not exactly predictable, with a little bit of variability, right? So that's when we call something as a graha. So if you take from a geocentric view is keeping whatever the way we see in the sky, keeping Earth in the middle, seeing the different planets. So if you look at sun, even sun go through the oscillation. So if you look at carefully the barycenter that I have talked about here earlier, so if you look at barycentric motion, you see here, so this is the yellow line is the path the sun is moving. Sun is not like two-body object, rather entire solar system's center point, somewhere lies inside the sun, right? Because everybody is rotating at a different speeds and different at a different mass. The sun also, the entire solar system go through a little bit of wobbling effect. So that wobbling effect is shown here. Because of that reason, if you see from Earth, sun also go through a random movement. So that is the reason we call sun as graha. We don't, it's not that our saints are not aware of that. Rather, they are too aware of that. That's why we call sun as a graha. Okay. Now, this whatever you see here, the yellow lines, this is the overall impact if you take all the bodies together. So if you see the range here, it's about 1.3 million kilometers. So that's movement when sun moves around. So if you take if you remove some of the effect like Jupiter, Saturn, all the big objects, if you consider only the effect of, Earth and Moon. Earth and Moon together impact movement of sun. So that movement will be something like that, which is like a smaller ratio, like 870 kilometers. So because of our Earth and Moon's movement, sun also gets disturbed. Each one affect the other body. Okay. So now let us talk about something interesting. So which is about the Cheshta Bala, or we call daily motion of planets, right? So this is one of the Shadbala concepts. So this is also related to Vagragati, Vagra retrograde planets. We will talk about that now. So if you see here, just watch this here. So when the red line, right? In the red line, sun is in the center. Watch how the red line planet travels. So when the orbit of a planet is, sun is exactly in the center of the orbit, this particular dot doesn't show any variability. It moves on a linear path, right? A linear speed. Rather, if you watch an object which is like, sun is not on the center, but in the corner of it or little above from it, watch the pink color dot. Just watch the movement. You will see that as it moves away from sun, it goes through a slow movement, right? You track it. But the moment it starts coming towards sun, its speed increases, right? And then you see, the moment it hits back close to sun, it quickly moves fast compared to other planets, right? So this is we call daily motion of planets, and all the planets are not having sun as the center. For some planets, this center point is little different from others, what we call perihelion, aphelion. Because of that, different planets move in different speeds. Okay, that you have to understand. And on top of that, we are seeing the planet from Earth. This is what you see here is a heliocentric view, but what we are seeing the planets is from the Earth. So when you have an Earth-centric view, I will show how it will look like. So I have taken a particular date in time. So if you go back to 9th March 1980, and then if you look at Rashi chart, you will see that sun is in Aquarius, and then you will see Jupiter in Leo. And Mercury will be in Aquarius as well. And both Mercury and Jupiter are in retrograde. Let us talk about the retrograde, right? So retrograde is when, now let us focus only on Earth and Mercury, right? So when these two planets are coming in a line or somewhere closer, this is the retrograde range, what happens is that look at the distance between the orbit and the planets. So a Mercury could be somewhere here, which is behind the sun, or a Mercury could be behind, in front of sun. Both are same locations, right? If you look at degree wise, they will look same. But when a Mercury comes closer, it goes through a retrograde motion, right? So because Earth moves fast and Mercury moves slow in the circle, that's why we tend to see that Mercury is retrograding. Similarly, same thing happens with Jupiter. So when retrograde happens, look at the distance between these two planets. Wherever retrograde happens, Earth, that planet comes close to Earth. So this is a very, very important observation. You have to remember, a retrograde planet is close to Earth. This you have to remember. Because it is closer to Earth, what can happen is, so we talk about 4 types of forces. One is magnetic force, electric force. We talk about ether, we talk about light in Jyotish. So when a planet comes closer to Earth, what happens is, it's like you are going on a bike. Next to you, a big van is going, or a big, what you call a trailer is moving, right? So when you're moving along with a trailer, you will see the vibrations of the trailer on the bike, right? If you're going single or going in a cycle or something like that, right? So it can leave a strong impact on Earth. And the other part is the light that gets reflected from sun, right? That light reaches the light reflecting from Jupiter when it is retrograde reaches Earth at a much shorter time, right? So these are the two reasons. Because the planet is closer to you, it leaves a stronger magnetic impact, electromagnetic impact on Earth. And then the light from the planet also travels much quicker. So these are the reasons why Parashara gives a lot of importance for retrograde planets. If you take Shadbala, he gives topmost importance to retrograde planets. So a retrograde planet, what will happen is it will leave a stronger impact on the life. That you have to remember. Okay, so when you go on retrograde motion, right, if you put it in the software, this is how it will look like. I have drawn the path of Mercury, so it will move like that, and then it makes like a circle, and then it travels. I will show you in the software how it will look like, but you have to understand that the path is because of the distance is low, it comes closer and like kind of make a circle and go. So this is what my teacher, Gopalakrishnan sir, will say, that if people with a retrograde planet in their chart, they tend to draw a circle for themselves. They don't get out of the circle. They stay there. They go against the normal norms, all of that. So somebody having too many retrograde planets in your chart, it's very difficult to manage that. Okay, because it's not that bad, because they get too much of impact from those planets, get too much strongly influenced by those planets. Okay, this is clear. So now, if you have any questions at this point, let me take the question, then we will move to the demo part of it.
Sure.
Muthu?
So how much time are we planning for demo? Because it's already 1.5 hours.
So how much time do we have? How much time?
We are actually on time now. If it is a demo is planned for a short
Probably
time,
I can cover the demo in 15 minutes. And not many of them have the software, right? I want to get you initiated, and then they can explore, and then probably if needed, we can do a detailed session later.
Sure. Yeah. One question I have is like, do you find any rationale behind that allocation of planets for the stars? For example, Ashwini Mahamula is ruled by Ketu, right?
Okay.
I think in your slides also you have given a color pattern.
Yeah,
I saw that actually. So do you able to find any rationale behind that?
okay. So that's a very interesting question. So the way I see astrology part of astronomy part is, we don't draw too many things from astronomy to astrology. So they have taken a construct, they have taken a framework, but after some level that becomes more of a mathematical problem solving, right? So when you have a mathematical problem and then you want to solve it through a certain way, you assign some values to something just to begin with, and then you use those assumptions to draw further inferences, right? So that's how I see the stars being assigned to particular planets. It also holds good, for example, why Simha is assigned to sun, why Cancer is assigned to moon. Just the way they have given us some assignments, I see the nakshatras also assigned to different planets. But interestingly, if you look at some of the planets, for example, if you take Mrigashirisha, right? So Mrigashirisha, if you go and look at the planet about their ultraviolet activity and all of that, some of the Mars stars have very high ultraviolet activity compared to normal stars. So there are some reasons you can justify, but not for all the stars.
Okay.
I see more like assignment than any astronomical reason I can find out.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody have any other question, or can we move into demo?
I see a lot of people getting dropped out. I know it's a technical session.
Yeah, probably then you can get started with the demo. So
Okay.
we'll see.
So
After demo, we'll
we
give
will
some more
quickly
time.
cover, and then we can take questions. We also need to have question time, right? Little bit, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So now let me show you about the software. Okay. So if you go to this website, Stellarium, today we are going to talk about Stellarium software. So it has both a web version as well as a desktop version available for download. Web version has limited features. So if you don't want to install, you want to try it out on your machine, you can do that. When you go to the stellariumweb.org, you have the first thing you have to do here is view the settings. Normally these two are selected and meridian and ecliptic line are not selected. So what you can do is you can choose all of them. I will explain what this means. It's not a very strong interface web-wise. So meridian is just above your head, right? Anything that is above your head is meridian. Ecliptic is the path on which all the planets travel, right? Close to path. So rather, I would prefer switching to the desktop version because it's not very user-friendly on the web version. You can look at planets, you can see something, but it doesn't have too many options. Let me show you the Stellarium app. I'm just opening. I'll move it here. Just give me a minute. Just loading. Just give me a minute. Do any of you have played around with Stellarium software? Do you have any idea of what it?
I have tried Star Walk, but not Stellarium.
Okay. So I will help you to explore this. I learned it on my own. I got the software. I played it around for like few weeks, and then each of the terminologies that are given there, I went to Google or Wikipedia, and then that's how I learned. So I will share what I learned here. Okay, so when you open the software, you will have a different kind of view. But here I have I have made some changes. When you open the software, what you need to do here is go here. It has the icons coming on the left-hand side, and then you will also have icons on the bottom, right? So I will explain about these icons. So location window is you can set up the location from where you want to see the sky. It's basically an app to see how the sky will look like from the place, wherever the place on Earth you want to view it, and where the planets will move, how the stars will look, all that. So it's basically a simulated app. So they have taken a mathematical model based on astronomical data, and then they have created an app so that you can visualize. It's not the live app. Basically, it's a simulated app. Okay. So what I do here is a free app. There is a lot of things to be improved. So here I have chosen Chennai. You can type any location. For example, if you take New Delhi, you can choose New Delhi, right? And then you can add it to that. Rather, I have taken Chennai. So just to give you a view, Chennai, it will choose. Rather, if you want to set up your own, you can do that as well. First, you have to choose a location, and then you close that window. Then this is about time. If you want to go back and forth in time, you can use this window to go back and forth. Okay, so we'll come here later. And the third one is the sky and viewing options window. So this is the important part of it. Settings. Okay, so sky and view. So what you have here is you see a limit magnitude, right? Do you see? There is something called a limit magnitude. So limit magnitude is a human eye can see up to a bright object in the sky up to 6.5 magnitude value. So if you want to increase or decrease, you can use it. But all the stars we saw, 27 stars, fall within the 6.5 magnitude. Our planets are much brighter than that. We saw that. And then stars, if you want to increase the scales and all, you can do that. Then there is something called a projection. So a projection is important to see how you want to look at the window on the Stellarium software. So there are different projection methods. They have something called a field of view. Field of view is how many degrees you can see. Like for example, stereographic is 235 degree, fish eye is 360, orthographic is 180. So you get to see part of it. So you can pick and choose. Somebody who is new is easily get lost in the software, right? Because it's there is so many things that you will not even know how to set it up. So what I would suggest you is, if you are going to explore, I would say that you keep the equal area. So it gives you every location gives an equal perspective. So this setup you can make. Important things note here: equal area only. Don't make any other changes. If you want, you can add labels and markers that will give you what is the name of the particular star and all of that. Okay. Then comes solar system object, SSO. In solar system object, so here you can again limit the magnitude. Here you can see show the orbits. Orbits is like, the colored lines you see for every planet that you can show. And then you can also show trails. Trails is when a planet moves, so it will leave behind a line. So you can see what this is useful when you want to see the movement of moon, when you want to see the retrograde motion. The trails are very helpful. Okay, that you can use. And then DSO is distant objects. You don't need that. Just leave it as is. So this is where you will define the lines that you want to see, other things you want to see. Don't select too many things here. Okay, the one thing you can choose here is basically I choose only ecliptic grid. So ecliptic grid is what we talked about earlier. So how all the planets move from a geocentric view, that is ecliptic grid. And then there is something called J2000. So J2000 is like they will, for every year, they will have a fixed number, fixed value. Either you can see the sky based on that particular grid, or the ecliptic grid keeps changing every day. So either you can use current date, whatever the date you are using, whatever the date that is running in the system, you can use that one, or you can use J2000. J2000 is a standard catalog. So latest we have J2016, and that's not published yet, but you have like a little earlier version of it that you can use. Coming to the precision circle. So precision circle helps you to see what you see in the bottom, like years. You draw a boundary on top of it, and then you can see that. That helps you to see that one. And then equator, you can see equinoxes and other things. For that, you can use equator. You see here, I have chosen minimum number of entries. I have not chosen everything. So there are 3 levels of detail. First line, it will give you a big line. Second line will give you your dividers, small dividers. Third line will give you the labels. So that's how it works. Equator also, you will have one line, you will have line small boundaries, and then you will have a label, like 10, 20, something like that. So that is what these options will have. Okay. Landscape. So when you open landscape, you will show something like this. First time you open, you will have something like this, show ground. So you have to remove the show ground. Then it becomes clearly visible one. Take out the fog and other stuff. Okay. Then comes the star lore. Star lore is the culture. What we call culture is how it will look like for an Arabian, right? How the constellation will look like for an Arabian. Not all the 12 Rashis are same across cultures. So what we call Mesha Rasi, a collection of stars in Mesha Rasi, are not same with Arabic system or with Western system. Okay, a Mesha Rasi of stars in Mesha Rasi of Western and Indian are very different. Right? In some of the cases, they are very at least 50% different than what you can see. So here, what you have to see here is go to Indian Vedic. So Indian Vedic, you make a choice here that gives you the constellation, the Rasi symbols that we use in India. Here you can choose different colors. This is a color. You know, if you want to choose a different color, you can choose it. That's how I made my customization. You can show asterism labels. You can show boundaries. All of that. Boundaries in Indian system, we don't have boundaries. So rather, Western system will have like 88 constellation boundaries. India, we don't have boundaries. So even if you choose some of them, you won't get it. Right? So we talked about sky, we talked about SSO, we talked about marking, we talked about star lore, right? So then this is good enough for you. So you are all set. Now let us okay.
Geeta, you have some question?
No.
Okay.
Just give me a minute. Let me. The mouse Zoom is somehow not working. Just give me a minute. So you have, okay. So I talked about it, right? Let me show you some more settings here. So there is something called a configuration window. There is something called a search window. We talked about viewing options. Search window is used, for example, if you want to search for Mars, you can just type Mars and then it will take you to Mars. Okay. Similarly, it will highlight all the statistics behind the astronomical data behind Mars will be given to you. And then here, then you have something called a configuration window. Configuration window is helpful. Okay, just a minute. I want to see mouse. Okay, use kinetic scrolling. So you can use a mouse to zoom in, zoom out. So you have to make this choice. Use kinetic scrolling. Then only it will work. Okay. You have this, you have extras, you have time. Okay. I will not go into each one of them. That can take a lot of time, but I just want to. For some reason, okay, it's coming now. Okay. Okay. So now this is the view from the North Pole. If you stand on top of the North Pole, and if you look at from an ecliptic grid point, so this is how it will be visible. Okay, so now here, look at this one. So we are here on Dhruva Nakshatra, which is Polaris, right? On the opposite side, we have Abhijit. We talked about, right? So now we are in the year of 2000. So that's where we are able to see Dhruva Nakshatra. So Dhruva Nakshatra is, if you look at, there are different catalogs. How to read this? So if you click on any object, right? For example, Brahma Hridaya, if I click on that, it will tell me the different names for the same star. For example, it is, if you look at HIP number, it is HIP 24608. HIP has a value of 114,000 stars. HD and all, HR and all have more values. Okay, so you will not find HIP for all stars. But all the 24 stars, 27 stars we have HIP number. I have listed the individual star name, HIP Tara numbers associated with that for all the stars in my articles. It's available both in Tamil and English. You can refer to that. You can go back and look at that. Okay, so now if you look at here, you see all the ecliptic grid is passing through the 12 zodiac signs, right? It goes through all of that. And then on top of that, you have the pole star. Okay. Okay. There is something called astronomical calculations window. Okay, I want to touch about that. So if you look at here, mainly the distance part. So I normally use a lot of calculations in my, to calculate the distance between two objects. So that I have shown you here. So let me take you to distance between Jupiter and or probably Mercury. I want to show how the distance will look like when there is a retrograde, okay? Is this visible? Right, okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what you see here on this chart is the distance between Earth and Mercury. So whenever there is a retrograde, you will see that this distance is low. Okay. Can somebody tell me, okay, let us take the example from the Mercury retrograde, right? So let us take the same example. So if we click out, if you click somewhere outside, these labels will go away. Okay. So let us keep it. Let us just go back in time and then search for one particular time, which is 1980. March 9th. Right. So let us look at the distance now. You see here, the 0 is when this planet is close to Earth, right? So whenever you see retrograde, this particular, on that day, Mercury was retrograde. Okay, so this region, you see it is coming close to Earth, right? So now let us look at Mercury. What happened to Mercury on the day? So this is a bit, you have to get used to the software. First time when you're trying, it may find, you will find very challenging. It's Mercury. Oh, it's here. Sorry. Okay, so this is a tricky part of it. The alignment doesn't happen sometimes well. So what I want to show you here is, do you see a circle of Mercury going? Do you see a round? Okay, I will show you. Okay, this view, somehow this mouse is not working very well. Okay, let me change the view. Okay, so bear with me. I'm just trying to see. This mouse option is not working well today. Okay. Okay. It's somehow it's not working today. I'm sorry for that. So you can see that the Mercury. Okay. Let me give you the option of running it. So you have an, okay, so we talked about that part, right? Let me come there. Here we have calculated astronomical calculations. I showed you how to calculate a distance between two bodies. And then here you can specify date, and then it will tell you when are the eclipses happening on a particular location. And here you can play around with these labels. It will give you different colors and that it can provide. So this is like an ecliptic grid. If you want to get it off grid, you can get it. This is like a celestial grid. So these two grids overlay, you can find out the INAMSA calculations I talked about earlier. So actually I wanted to show you that, but it's not working well. Not a good day, it seems. Okay, these are different labels. You can on and off toggle between them, and then that should give you. Okay, just give me a minute. Let me restart this.
Sure. But I think for outer planets, the distance during retrograde will be higher, I guess. For example, Jupiter, when it retrogrades, it will be far away from Sun.
Muthu, somehow I'm not able to. I'm sorry, it's not able to hear you well.
Okay. I think for outer planets,
okay,
during retrogression, I think it will be far away from the Sun and also from the Earth. Is that true?
I'm sorry. Can you come again, please?
Okay, I'm not sure what happened to my mic.
Maybe you can use the chat option.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
Can you use the chat option if you don't mind, please? Okay, probably some other. Okay, this will do. Probably let us try this one. Somebody is laughing, eh? Between Jupiter will be no. So that is not correct. So let me show you distance between Jupiter and days when retrograde happens. Okay, I'll show you the graph. So let us take a day when Jupiter was retrograde, right?
Right.
So this is 245 days from the date that we have here. So let me put the 9th March only, when Jupiter was retrograde. Okay, then we can see. You see the distance?
Okay. This year, I think during August 2022, Jupiter is going to retrograde. So is it possible to put that date?
Which one, Muthu? Can you use the chat, please, if you don't mind?
Okay.
Somehow I'm not able to hear. So whenever retrograde, the distance between you take any rashis on the back end. So whenever it is retrograde, the distance between that object and Earth will be always smaller. Okay, so let me show you the August 22. You have a specific date in mind? You can see this. Do you see probably in September it's more retrograde?
Right. Okay.
Is it Does it answer your question?
Yeah. From astrological standpoint, usually when Jupiter will be in the 5th house, right, from the sun, the retrogression will start, right?
It starts. So what I would say is, what you have to remember is the rate of change. We talked about when we talked about Cheshtabalam. So we don't talk about we mainly talk about rate of change in the degrees, right? So it will start from negative. That's when instead of moving positive, it will change negative. It will go down further, and then it picks it up again. So till it reaches certain between 0 to 0 range, that is when it is retrograde. So it starts from the house side. That's fine. It starts from the 5th house, not exactly on the 5th house. There has to be a specific degree distance between Jupiter and Sun. That's when the retrograde starts.
Yeah, because the retrogression is all about with respect to the reference from the sun, right? So basically during September, as you said, sun will be in the Leo and Jupiter will be in the Aquarius this whole year, right? So that's when the retrogression will be peak.
Yeah. So see here, this is a range when, it's not just one Rashi. So it is a set of Rashis. What happens is sun also moves, right? So because Earth moves, the sun will also move during this period. That's where we will see the retrogression happening. Opposite
Right.
signs, or at least in the five signs that we have.
Right. So during the opposite signs, retrograde will be at the peak.
Muthu, I'm sorry, Muthu, I can't hear you well. Something wrong with my side. I don't know.
Okay, no issues. You continue.
If you can type it, I would appreciate that. You can hear me well, right?
Yeah, I am able to hear you. That's fine. You can continue.
Okay. So that's pretty much okay. We talked about the distance. Okay. So you can move around any specific time, but somehow today it's not helping me out. Okay. The Zoom part is not working well. That's what bothers me. So and it doesn't work with laptop mouse. So you have to do external mouse.
Okay.
It's not working. Oh, it works. And then Muthu, I would suggest probably we can take it up other day. I don't want to waste people's time.
Sure. Let's take Q&A. Like if anybody have any specific questions, we'll take it now.
Yeah. Okay. If you don't mind, what I want to highlight here is when there is a retrograde motion, do you see the path? So this is your Mercury. Right. So if you look at here, Mercury goes through the path and then it picks up the red line. So
right.
It goes through the Mercury, it goes through the circle. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably we'll take up the questions now in the interest of time. Any questions?
So every day we have the Abhijit period. Every day we have the Abhijit period. So does it mean the polar axis is touching the Abhijit star?
Okay, just to give me a minute. Let me just give me a minute. Let me stop the presentation and then let me disconnect my additional monitors. That should help. Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. Let me come back now.
So Ram, your question is related to Abhijit Muhurta?
Yeah.
Yeah, now I can hear you well. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so every day we have the Abhijit Muhurtam period.
Okay.
So does it have anything to do with Earth axis? You showed a
Okay.
circular rabbit touching the Abhijit star. So does it
So
have to do
Abhijit
anything?
Muhurtam is a Muhurta concept. So when we have Abhijit Muhurtam, that is when we have sun in the 10th house, any day, right?
Hmm.
So that is one of the astrological considerations we take up, because when sun is in 10th house, we get Digbala. Sun gets Digbala, right? So that's the reason for any day, it's one of the, for any day, if you are not able to find any Muhurta, so just to get a Muhurta, we use Abhijit Muhurta.
I think
Because
the Ram's
sun
question
will
is,
be-
I think
Okay.
the Ram's question is about, you showed the Abhijit star, right, which is Vega.
Okay, it doesn't have anything to do with Abhijit star.
Yeah, I think so. Because that's kind of a 26,000 year cycle.
Yeah, it's a huge
Right
cycle.
now we are in Polaris. Maybe after 13,000 years, we may be moving to Vega, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when it completes another full cycle, we will get the Abhijit star as the pole star again.
Pole star, yeah. That's a pole
Okay.
star.
So I have one question. What exactly is Chandrashtama? Because I've seen in my astrology, every Chandrashtama there is some problem or something goes. It's hard. So what is it actually?
Okay. Chandra Ashtama is, you have it calculated based on your birth chart, right?
Okay.
So when Chandra, based on wherever Chandra is placed on your birth chart, so when the transitory moon is going on the 8th house, so that's what we call Chandra Ashtama. So you don't get the energies from Chandra. So basically, it's a combination of natal chart versus transitory chart. So that's what we call
So
Chandra
when the
Ashtama.
moon from its natal position goes through the 8th house, that it is blocked. Okay.
That's a particular star. It is a Chandra Ashtama for you.
And this is not astronomical.
No
This is
astronomy.
astrological.
Yes.
Only astrological questions now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that's it. I just wanted to know what.
There is no astronomy. So you have to remember, we have to realize that at some point the astronomy ends, and then they have taken the crux of astronomy to build a base, and then it goes into the mathematical realm. So it will move on to more like constructs between the relationship between rashis, planets, bhavas, like that.
Okay.
Okay.
I think probably what she means is when it comes to the 8th house, the 210 degrees to 240 degrees relatively,
Okay.
does it have astronomically a sort of blind spot or something like that?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like physically, you show
why is the 8th house called the black hole or something like a?
Yeah, for Chandrashtama. So is it disappearing behind the planet? Like just the physical.
So I don't see again, as I said, I don't see astronomical connections between that. Rather, it is more of a mathematical construct. So it's a relationship between birth chart Chandra and your transitory moon. I don't see any astronomical reason, because it keeps changing, right? Every day, everybody has. If Chandrashtama has to happen for everybody, right? It's a mathematical construct specific to your birth chart.
Okay. And another question, sir, is some charts, as you said, some nakshatras are in the elliptic plane, some are up or down or up. So what's like for the Pushya, if you look at it, it's supposed to be a very nurturing star. But I don't know if I'm mixing it up with Western constellation names, but the Orion belt also kind of looks like that, but that's more of a predatory, like a hunter thing. And so, what is the Orion in our Vedic?
So Orion, we have taken, there are Mrigashirisha and Ardra are a part of that. You have to remember that the constellations boundaries are the part of the constellation. Particular Rashis are different between Western and Indian. We attach, normally when we say predictions, we attach a lot of things to star. What I would say is the way they would have drawn that conclusions about a star being with particular characteristics is mainly we talk about moon in a particular star, right? When we talk about characteristics, mainly we talk about moon, right?
Yeah.
So the way they would have constructed is you take all the people born in a particular nakshatra, find out their salient characteristics, and then tell that as a prediction for others. So that's how they synthesize and extract that information and then attach that to a star. Stars have nothing to do with it.
Okay. Thank you. That's my question.
I think I had some issue with my mouse. If you are available, I can show you now. Now it works. Seems to be working.
You're telling me, sir, or to all of us in a group? I'm here till the end
I'm
of.
saying everyone. I'm asking Muthu.
What's that question, Ramesh?
No.
What is that?
Muthu, I'm saying the software. Okay. Is weird.
Oh, you said like you have some issue with your mouse.
Yeah. So something in the software. I got the update installed this morning. Somehow something is not working.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know. Okay. It's like not again not working. Some problem with the software.
That's fine.
Okay. So any other questions?
I think one more question in the chat window. What is logic behind certain planets being lord of certain nakshatras?
You talked about that, right?
I think that's the question we already asked. I already asked. So there is no astronomical relation.
But I think, Ramesh sir, I think I read in your article somewhere when you said when the moon is exalted in Rohini, I think I remember you saying that moon has a lot higher vibration or something like that, especially when it crosses Rohini star, especially with the degrees, plus or minus 6 degrees, or I don't know if it's your article or someone else's article. Like it was astronomically shown that moon oscillates a lot, particularly when it at a very higher frequency.
Okay. So that is probably Raj Vedam's article.
Yes,
so probably
yeah.
Okay. I know where you're coming from. So what happens is when so especially Rishabha Rashi, right? So Rishabha Rashi and Midhuna Rashi. So if you look at the Earth's elliptic, that is a place. All of them are coming together. The distance between Earth and Sun, and then when the cycle goes on, right, with Moon also, at that point of time where it travels there, they spend more time. It is in the equation when the rotation that there is a stronger association of Moon when it when we travel through the Rohini. Yeah. So that side. It doesn't have anything to do with the nakshatra, but rather the placement. We are marking the place by nakshatra.
Okay. It's more like a milestone. Yeah, just like.
Yeah, it's a particular point there. Yeah.
Sir, can you explain the sun exaltation point one more time?
Sun exaltation, we talked about normally. I see it. It's part of the mathematical puzzle. So mathematical, individually they don't make. We talk a lot about sun being exalted. It gives you that, this, and all of that. But if you look at from an astronomical perspective, at least at this point of time, we don't know what relates well with sun's exaltation in Mesha Rasi. So there are no specific astronomical factors associated with that. I see that more like a mathematical, again, part of the mathematical construct. Sorry. So Ucha, Nicha, similarly, there are a lot of things that are assigned to it. For example, Rashi, Sara Rashi, Sthira Rashi, all these are part of an assignment, before we solve a major puzzle. So you have to start somewhere, right? So these are like individual building blocks. So the way we have to see each of the astrological consideration is, so Ucha, Nicha, you say take it like a separate variable, from a modeling perspective. If you talk about Mulatarikana as a separate variable. You talk about the placement, first house, second house, separate aspect. So all this Ucha, Nicha all comes only part of Parashara system. So if you go to Nadi, they don't talk about any of that, right? So if Ucha has something to do with Sun's Ucha has something to do with Mesha, they would have certainly talked about it in Nadi, right? So but with Nadi, they take away all the additional layers of information. They trim it down to fewer layers and then they try to give a prediction. In Parashara, we go detail.
Yeah, got it.
Did it answer your question? Vikram?
It did. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, but you mentioned something like when the sun comes to Mesha at that time, it is a lot of land mass is exposed to sun.
Okay,
right?
So we have on the northern hemisphere, we normally, northern hemisphere has more land area compared to the southern hemisphere. So the temperature stays, it quickly warms up.
Specific heat capacity of land is lower, so it heats up faster. So when we talk from a geocentric point of view, instead of saying the earth gets hotter, probably they are referring to as saying the sun gets hotter there, like exaltation or something. So it could be that way.
That's correct.
Yeah. I was looking for that word, that landmass. I missed to note about
landmass. Okay, you want me to repeat that? Okay. So because we have more landmass on the northern hemisphere, that's when travels we get. And if you know, that month only is very hot because that's when sun just travels India, right? It goes up on the side. So we live in America, we get the later months are very hotter for us. June, July is very hot for us. We are still in May, but still we feel cold. I'm close to May. Still, where the part I live, eastern coast, still cold. It snowed like 1 week back. You won't believe it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Anybody have any other question? One last question can we take? If anybody have?
Yeah, please.
Can I just comment?
Sure.
Because I'm just in disbelief. I can't believe I learned so much in a short period of time. Thank you so much. I'm seriously amazed. Thank you.
You are welcome. I think you will go back and watch this session again. I know there is a lot of information packed here. I'm kind of rushing it through. Probably you will benefit going back and looking at it. I'm sorry I could not do the demo part of it. Probably we will have sometimes one day session for that. Probably.
So one request. I've read your English articles. They're all fantastic. I can read Tamil too, but if you could translate the other articles in English, it will be really helpful.
I understand. So that's a popular request from many people. I want to wrap up that series. I've been writing like 2 years in Tamil now. I have not translated them in English for quite some time. I understand. I will certainly consider. It's kind of a constraint for time. A lot of work. For the last 2 months, I have not written any article. So
all your articles are fantastic.
Fantastic.
Very informative. Very, very informative. Thank you so much.
And so this session, will it be in your channel if we want to listen to it again in
Yes.
Okay.
It will be uploaded either tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So it will be in my channel.
Okay,
You
thank
can
you, sir.
listen to it again.
Okay.
Okay, if there are any no questions, then we will wind up. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for a very
Thank
informative
you.
session.
Thank
Probably
you.
we'll,
Thank you, everyone.
sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the so information
Thank
for
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
You're
all
welcome.
for joining.
Thank you, sir.